Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Hatha for everybody. Got it right the first time. Hatha yoga for everybody. I'll put my chair right in the center there. So today we need our mats, a blanket, a couple of blocks, and a strap. Basic props, and we'll take a few moments to center ourselves before we start our physical practice. The first pose will be reclining. So if you prefer to go ahead and lie back now and do your centering while you're lying down, you can do that, or you can do it while you're sitting. I'll remain seated in my chair. And take your time getting all of your things together and settling in. Maybe take a few cleansing breaths. Wiping the slate clean. Setting aside distractions. That's what that cleansing breath's all about. Getting rid of those distractions as much as we can from the outset. The intentions of our yoga, as Patanjali has explained to us. Stilling the mind. So we'll still the body, the breath, and the mind as a cohesive unit. Helping us to settle into our space, maybe closing the eyes to help us draw ourselves more inward. What's it like to be you now? What's your now like now? Take note of your present moment, of what it feels to be you in this moment, not yesterday, not last night, not what you want to be, what you actually are. Scanning through your body, your energetic levels, your psyches. Couple more breaths, simply being. Hatha Yoga Nushasanam. Hatha Yoga Nushasanam. Now the teachings of yoga. The first line of our Yoga Sutras. Hatha meaning now. What's your now? And what will the instructions that you're about to receive for today's practice, whether it be from my mouth or your experience, what's it going to mean to you, those teachings? We'll find out. Let's go into our first pose. We're going to start each practice in this series in a reclining pose to help our settle our spine. So if you're not lying down, go ahead and lie down. Start with your knees bent, feet on the floor, so you get used to lying down, and stay there for a couple of breaths. If your legs are already extended, keep them extended. And then you can go ahead. Those of you who just bent your knees, then you can go ahead and extend your legs out. And let's keep our legs pretty close together. So a reclining mountain pose. Line up your shoulders, your hips, your knees, your ankles. Your feet can be flexed or they can be a little casual, whatever works for you. And that can change at any time. You can experiment with both of those ideas. And after you settle into that change, let's bring our arms shoulder height. And let's start with the hands face down because that makes for a little bit less of a change in the shoulder girdle. And you could have a blanket under your head and neck and shoulders as long as your head and neck are neutral with the rest of your spine. So we're in a T position. Make sure your hands are indeed shoulder height. Many times folks bring their hands up and the hands are up higher. You really want those hands shoulder height. So maybe you look at your hands and adjust them accordingly. That way you'll have less tension in your shoulders. And a couple more breaths in this T position. We're starting at ground zero, bit by bit, building our pose. The way Patanjali guides us through these sutras, our understanding of yoga, bit by bit. Now let's turn the hands face up. So we've got an open, more open shoulder and armpit area. Take a couple of breaths like that. External rotation in your shoulders. And then when you feel ready, we can change this into a goalpost position or reclining cactus arms. And if it's difficult for you to bring your elbows in a right angle, you could always have them maybe at a 60, 65. You decide about those angles, what works for you. And you might want to start kind of small, and eventually with time, patience, and breath, you could actually bring them closer to a 90-degree angle. And this is why rushing can be difficult for our bodies and distracting. And you hold your position. Atha Yoga Nushasanam, Sanskrit, those words. What is your now? And what will your yoga mean to you today? And the next line, Yogas Chitta Vritti Naroda. Yogas Chitta Vritti Naroda. Yoga is to still the patterning of the consciousness. Yoga is to quiet the mind. Yoga is to still the distractions. Yoga is to rid the mind of clutter in the mind. Bringing things to a simple, restive, quiet place. Simple, uncluttered, real. Now that you've been in this position for a few moments, again, anytime you want to make little subtle changes to your reclining cactus pose, please do so. Otherwise, let's just focus on our breath for the last moments in this pose. So as you're ready, draw your awareness to your in-breath, your out-breath. Deepen and lengthen either. You could be doing some ocean breath, or you could just do natural deepened breath. Ocean breath is that Darth Vader breath when you can hear it and feel it in your throat, which, if you recall from Vegas Day, really stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is something that helps us still the mind. It helps us focus and wipe away all the complicated layers of our thoughts and our beings and our expectations. Notice how that breath is affecting your experience. And the last two lines of the first section of the first chapter, I've read you the first two, the next two. Tada drashtua svarupa vashtanam. Tada drashtua svarupa vashtanam. Then pure awareness can abide in its very nature. So yoga is to still the patterning of consciousness so that pure awareness can abide in its true nature. And the final line of the first section, vritti sarupyam itaratara. Otherwise, awareness takes itself to be the patterns of consciousness. Otherwise, awareness takes on to be consciousness. In other words, he's saying that consciousness and awareness are two different things. Last week, our focus was on now, what that means. Very diverse. Can mean 50 million things if 50 million people are practicing at this very moment. That's 50 million nows. And today we'll focus on the difference between awareness and consciousness. So a few more breaths in your pose. So if you find your mind drifting and thinking about other things, you've slipped into your realm of consciousness. You're letting external factors take over your experience, which is natural. That's not an admonishment, a criticism. It's just it's an observation. It happens. We all get distracted. When you can strip away the layers of external distractions, you can get to the heart of the matter, the heart of your matter, who you are and what you really want in this particular moment. That's awareness. Awareness to what's really going on. Because you can be conscious in a room, but not really know what's going on in the room, right? You can be conscious in your physical state, but not be really aware of what's going on with you. Yoga helps us strip away these confusions. So one or two more breaths in your reclining cactus. How has this experience resulted for you? Do you feel bored? Do you feel distracted? Do you feel anxious? Sometimes stillness can bring up anxiety. And yoga teaches us how to quiet that anxiety in our times of stillness. So let's make our way to a little bit of movement. So, feel the effects of this. Feel especially your spine. It's a great spine settler. Really helps reduce those pronounced curves in our back. Let's bring our arms T position again. And a breath or two there. Notice how you feel with the arms outstretched. And then when you're ready, bring your arms closer in. Notice what that feels like. Mm-hmm. And then when you're ready, bend the knees, feet on the floor, two-legged table. Take a couple of breaths in that change. Notice what it feels like. Patanjali asks us to wipe the slate clean every time we come to the mat, as if this is a new experience. So look at this experience with curiosity. Yes, you've been here before, you know what to expect, but maybe not always. Now let's do some windshield wipers. So you decide where you want your arms. You want a back shoulder height, maybe out a little bit more. Where do you want the feet? I like to bring the feet and knees kind of wide so I don't crowd my wiper movement. And go ahead and start bringing the knees from side to side, coordinating the movement with the breath, bringing the head into it when you so desire. You have the option of starting in a twisted position, the head going in the opposite direction, or you could always go in the same direction to begin with. Start small and go from there, easing into this movement. And as we ease into these movements and these poses, we're more likely to notice more. So this is why we ask you not to rush into your pose constructions. And we ask you not to rush these movements. Let's do a few more, excuse me, of these windshield wipers. And contemplate which side you started on and end in the opposite. And then come back to center. And once you're back, take a couple of breaths, feeling the effects of both that pose and that movement. If you recall, we're doing the same exact practices we did last week. We'll just build on it. So now let's go into Apanasana. Draw your belly in, hug your knees in, start moving the feet, find different variations. Knees and feet wide, knees and feet close. Find some movement, rocking and rolling. Take your time. Make sure your head and neck are neutral. You don't want your neck to be straight. If your chin is reaching towards the wall behind you, that's not great for that neck. You should be looking right at the ceiling above your body. That's really important. Be mindful of your alignment. And, yoga, snippets of life, the more mindful you are of how your body is positioned and how you approach these challenges, they're very indicative of how you act off the mat. Are you mindful when you navigate your life? Back to the center, a couple of breaths, feeling the effects of your Apanasana. Maybe you can squeeze those legs a little deeper into your chest after working through that movement. And then we can come to one side and stay there for a couple of breaths and push up when you're ready, and we'll meet in a seated position. And if you recall from last week, yoga, the whole purpose of yoga is to still the mind. And the best way to still the mind is to meditate. But it can be hard for body, breath, and mind to meditate. So that's why we're doing this physical yoga. so that we can work through any physical distractions that make it difficult to sit still. So the more yoga you do, the easier it becomes to sit still. So if you're struggling, don't worry, it'll come to you. We'll take a few more moments in our seated position. Legs can be bent, they can be extended. Let's bring the hands out to the sides, building a nice little seated mountain. And when you're ready, let's start our rainbows. As always, using the breath to coordinate the movement, easing into these shapes, rooting and grounding to give you support, foundation, a place from which to begin your movement, a place from which to begin your yoga lesson today. Is your now changing? Are you aware of what's going on, or are you just going through the motions as if you were an autopilot? Be aware of the sensations, the progress, the body's response, even the emotional response to this movement. And we'll go one or two more times. And remember what side you started on, and end on the opposite. And that's a nice challenge to keep you mindful, always ending on the opposite side, so that you maintain balance within your movement, within your body. You're paying attention. You're being aware. One or two more breaths in silence. Now, let's come into butterfly. Your butterfly. Do your best not to crowd your pelvis by bringing your feet out, and do your best not to crowd your spine or your shoulders by putting your hands either somewhere higher than your knees. And if they go below, you'll hunch over. Couple more breaths, connecting with our butterfly shape, rooting and grounding into the earth and into our center of gravity, allowing us to rise up nice and tall. Let's soften the edges so we're not rigid. One more breath. And let's start our butterfly flies, rooting into the earth and curving to the back, closing the wings, doing the opposite as you're ready. Easing into curving your spine to the wall behind you, to the wall in front of you, to the back of the body, to the front of the body. Notice, pay attention to the goals. We're curving the spine from the tailbone all the way up to the neck. So is your whole spine involved in these curving shapes? Or is one part of the spine involved more than others? i.e., are you bobbing your head and neck a little more than you should be? Are you pressing into the earth? Are you noticing the space being created? These are all things that help you stay present and stay aware of your conscious effort. And remember, we want to create balance. So next time you're to the back, that'll be the last. Then one more time to the front. And then we'll reconnect with our butterfly. Take a few breaths to do that and settle in. And then take a few breaths to focus on the breathing, the energies throughout the pose. And notice how this affects your mindset. Does it help you stay present to watch and feel and put effort into that breath? One more breath. What's your butterfly feel like now? I don't know about you, but my knees, I could just feel them slowly but surely just releasing and letting go. And a little bit more space here. That was my experience. All right, let's extend our legs out. Let's shake them out. Let's tap them out. And let's make our way to our down dogs. And we'll use the next, about 3 minutes, easing into a little bit more action, a little bit more strength, using bigger muscles, which require more breath. And as always, we don't want to start with our biggest dog from the get-go. We want to ease into it so that we notice where we should be going today. If we go right to the end and we shouldn't have gone there and we injure ourselves, well, that's suffering. We've created suffering by being distracted by, the end prize. Ease into it. Notice. Find different variations, different little movements. Lifting and lowering the heels. Well, heck, you can lift and lower the toes. Yeah, try that. Wagging your tail, resting whenever you so desire. And if you prefer to be doing a wall dog or some, furniture dog, your hands on a chair, you could always do that version as well. And listen to your body. When it needs a rest, go down and rest. Because that helps build your experience. And that's part of your awareness. And we'll talk about that a little bit more next week when we start to delve into different types of distraction and different types of awareness. So anytime you're in your poses and you find yourself thinking about what's for breakfast or what's coming up next, that's a distraction. A kink in your back, a tight hamstring, that's a distraction. Stilted, uneven breath, that's a distraction. How can you ease through all of these distractions and keep things simple? Finding a sense of peace and equanimity and the challenges that you're bringing about in your body. And as you apply these methods to your practice, you'll find them applying to how you navigate the challenges of your life. Let's go a few more breaths. Few more breaths. Take your time. You could be resting. You could be dogging. You could be dog planking. You could, what do you want? How is your now feeling now? And what does your now want? What lessons from yoga do you want today? Well, if you want more of a challenge, that'll be your lesson. If you want more quiet, you'll learn from that. So when you're ready, let's start to think about making our way up to a standing position. And you've got your blocks there. So you could use your blocks to come up. You could use your down dog to come up. And you could use your blocks and your dog to come up. All sorts of options. I do ask that you avoid rolling up. I want you to hinge up, hinge at the hips, not at the waist. Use those strong legs and glutes to bring your spine and your torso up. Don't use that spine to bring you up. Be aware of these cues, these lessons that I give you each week. And we'll talk more about that next week. That's a way for you to become more aware, understand your experiences, but also take from other person's experiences. People who have a little bit more information to help you learn. So once you're up, what's it feel like to be up? We do this each week. Shake it out, fix your clothes. Because if your clothes are not fixed right when you do your first pose, that'll be a distraction. And when you're ready, I'm going to actually take a quick sip of tea because I feel like I need a little something for my throat here. Ooh. Okay. I'm going to wipe the slate clean as if we've never done yoga. We're just going to start from the very beginning and go from there. I'm going to make for a very simple now. So first things first, in your mountain, line up your shoulders, your hips, your knees, your ankles. Find the three corners in your feet. Draw the energy up the legs, up through the torso, all the way out through the crown of your head. One or two more breaths here. Be aware of the physical, and the energetic, and the emotional sensations that holding this pose brings you. That's the practice. One more breath here. Let's do some chairs. Very simple. Lift the arms, bend knees, hinge hips. You're trying to sit in a chair, not kneel on the floor. So are you putting more emphasis in your knees? We want more emphasis in the bum and those thighs. Feel it back here, not here. Maybe pretend, wriggle those toes. Wriggling the toes can be a nice way to help you stay good and rooted in the back of the body. Come up when you're ready. Float those arms down. Take 2 breaths. Try to be still. No need to answer every distraction that your body might be giving you. Twitches, twinges. Maybe they just kind of sail away all on their own. Let's do a couple more. Good, strong foundation. Inhale, lift. Exhale, press, bend, and hinge. And if you want to go deeper, simply press the feet into the floor more. That activates leg muscles, glute muscles. Keep the belly drawn in so you control the arch of your back. so you're not arching your back in your chair. And when you're ready to come back up, use an inhale to lift. Exhale, float those arms down. 2 breaths. Feel that chair fade into your mountain, and feel your mountain fade into the next chair, using your breath and that simple step-by-step methodology to build the pose, to sustain and enjoy and pay attention. Make sure your feet and your knees are equidistant apart. Maybe even your hands are the same too. And you get that kind of mountain-like feeling in your chair. Use an inhale to come up. Exhale down. Let's take 3 breaths. When you're ready, let's visit our warrior one. Step the right foot back. When you're ready, bend the knee. When you're ready, lift the arms. Very simple. Step back, bend knee, lift arms. Keep those motions simple, and you'll be rewarded. Less opportunity to suffer, less opportunity for something to go wrong. Lower arms, unbend leg, step forward. 2 breaths. Feel, listen, hear. We'll step back with the left foot when you're ready. Bend the knee when you're ready. Lift the arms when you're ready. Your pace, your range, your yoga, your lessons. What are you learning from this experience? You can learn a lot about your body and your psyche. Now that we're back, let's take a couple of breaths. So we just did a warrior one. Feet are on railroad tracks when we do our warrior one. So when we do our warrior two, our feet are on a balance beam. So let's do a warrior two from the front of our mat, which we usually don't do. Usually we turn to the side and bring our feet wide. We'll do it from this way. So when you're ready, step your right foot back. Your feet are on railroad tracks, right? Right foot on the right side, left foot on the left side. Now we want to line them up so they're on a balance beam. So the front foot is right in front of the back foot, and the back foot is lined up with that front foot, and that makes us face the long side of our mat. We root the feet, we bend the knee when we're ready, we lift those arms up. And we'll take a couple of breaths. I'm going to step forward because my hand was pushing into the wall, and that was a distraction, and that was affecting my entire pose. Looking towards the fingertips over that bent knee. Make sure the bent knee and the toes of that front foot are facing that short edge, the same direction as that hand and the head above it. 1 or 2 more breaths. And then when you're ready, use an inhale to step forward and take 2 breaths and notice how you feel. Where do you feel it? How do you feel it? And that can help build your next experience. So step your left foot back. You're on railroad tracks. Now step it in to line up with the front. You're on a beam. You're facing the long edge, but your toes and your knee are still facing the short edge. Arms come up. Facing that same direction, notice, have you aligned things how I've asked you to, or you've just gone through the motions? We want to use our consciousness and our awareness to build these poses. Let's come forward when you're ready and take a couple of breaths and notice. Now let's go to warrior one again. So step your right foot back and build your warrior one bit by bit, using the breath, using those step-by-step building blocks. Make sure your pose is strong but soft. A couple more breaths, giving you time to fine-tune your warrior one. And then when you're ready, let's turn it into a warrior two. So we turn to face the long side of the mat, and you'll need to line up the feet. So I've kind of heel-toed my feet, so they're on that balance beam again. Now we're in our warrior two. Let's turn that front hand over and visit a sun warrior. See what that's like. Press the feet into the floor to help you engage those leg muscles, to help you build that shape, to help you go back to your warrior two. And then let's go back to our warrior one. That's kind of a weird, awkward transition, going from a warrior two to a warrior one. Do your best. It's one we don't often do, if ever. Notice what your warrior one feels like. And then when you're ready, come back to your mountain and take 3 breaths. Notice where you feel it, how you feel it. You might be feeling positive sensations. You might be feeling not so positive sensations. Take note of all these things just as an observer, not as when, oh God, that hurt. Don't be hard on yourself. Let's do the other side. Step the left foot back, bend the knee, lift the arms. Simple construction, stabilizing our warrior one once we've constructed it. Feel the feet on railroad tracks. Notice. And then turn out to your warrior two and shimmy those feet so they're now on that balance beam. And the line of your feet is similar to the line of your arms, right? Notice that? We can turn that front hand over and come up into a sun warrior, pressing the feet equally into the floor so we're not collapsing on either leg as we go from our sun to our warrior two. So both legs are equally working. Come on back when you're ready. And take 3 breaths. Try not to give in to any distractions. Just notice, feel, listen, hear, and understand. Be fully aware of what just happened and its after effects. Let's shake it out a little bit. Let's march it out a little bit. And I'm going to check our time very briefly here, as briefly as I can. Yes, okay, good, we've got time. All right, so we're going to build upon that, which we just did. So the top of your mat, I'm actually going to move my mat slightly ahead. Give myself a little bit more room there. Okay, so from the top of your mat, we will step the right foot back. Let's go into our warrior one. Bit by bit, build your warrior one. And then open out to your warrior two. Keep it simple, bit by bit, finding your warrior two. Let's do a sun. Root the feet to help you reach and curve your spine, a little bit of a back bend. That back leg is good and strong, so make sure that knee in the back is not sagging. Come back to your warrior two. Now we'll turn our warrior two into a triangle. So that means we extend that leg that's bent. So we no longer bend the leg. We reach that front hand past those front toes. We bring that front hand down to the leg as we bring the back arm up. And we do our best to line up the shoulders and line up the arms. I'll show you that from the side. So in other words, is your back arm going like this and your front arm going to the front? You want a long line in those arms. So what do you need to do in your body to bring that back arm, that top arm up? Because that's usually the problematic arm. Maybe come up a little bit. Maybe twist your body a little bit. And when you're ready, I'll give you another breath or two to play around with that alignment cue. Then we can come back up to our warrior two. So as you lift back up, that front knee bends again. And you're back in your warrior two. And when you're ready, step forward and take 3 breaths, because we just did a lot. Be still as you can. Feel, understand, be aware of what just happened. Avoid giving in to distractions. If you feel, oh gosh, coffee coming in, just push that coffee aside or whatever thought might come up. Let's do it again on the other side. So from your mountain, you're on railroad tracks. So when you step back in your warrior one, you're still on those railroad tracks. Be mindful of that cue because it keeps you safe and sound and it keeps you balanced. And then open out to your warrior two when you're ready. Once again, shuffle the feet, line them up so they're on that balance beam. I'm giving you good sound information that can help you go a little further because a sun is a little bit more challenging than a warrior two. Feet are still warrior two like though. So we don't feel one leg more than the other as we come back to our warrior two. And when we turn our warrior two into our triangle, front leg is no longer bent. Arms are lined up as best as we can. Pay attention. So if your arms aren't lined up and you just stay there, that's not being aware of your experience. Be mindful, adjust, find those lines. Turn back to your warrior two when you're ready. Ooh, got to go back to our warrior one. Oh, we didn't do that on that last side. No, let's just step forward. We did that the first time, not the second time. Caught myself. Couple of breaths. How do you feel? Where do you feel it? What's urging you? Are you dying to scratch your nose? Fix your shirt? Your hair? Just let those things go for a moment. They'll probably still be there for you, right? Or maybe they'll work out on their own. Let's kind of shake it out now, do a little bit of movement. And let's build a tree pose. We have enough time for a tree. So if you want to go off mat, if you want to change your location, find what you need to make for a positive experience and think about, excuse me, what kind of tree you want before you build it. So you're mindful of your goal. You're not just throwing yourself into it. And once you're ready to build that tree, start from a good mountain and shift and start to build. Try to build the bottom half before you bring the upper half into it. Couple more breaths. And do your best to dismantle your tree with thought, with mindfulness, with some sense of precision. Not looking for perfection, nor should you be. We're looking for following guidelines, building bit by bit. What's your tree like on the second side once you've built it? What do you want from it? What do you need from it? What makes it work? And when you're ready, bit by bit, mindfully deconstruct it. And then come back to a still mountain. Do your best to not even look down and move around. Do your best to avoid all that. Just come right back to that mountain. Couple of breaths, feel it. Be aware of it. And then if you want to do some movement, you could do that. And then we'll do one more on each side. So before you build your tree on the second side, or the first side for that second time, what do you want? Think about your experience before you go into it. And think about it every step of the way. But be light. Meaning it might not be what you expected. So be prepared to greet distractions that arise and to control those distractions as they arise. Couple of breaths in between each side. Let you find your way. And when you're ready to dismantle, bit by bit, come back to your mountain. Okay, so something just happened in my room, which I'm dying to tell you because it fits so well into our lesson. So just as I was coming out of the mountain, I heard a bang on the other side on the apartment next door, and I thought maybe somebody was knocking on my door. And rather than just stop everything and run and see what that was, it's like, okay, something just knocked there. If somebody's knocking on my door, they'll knock again, right? So I'm just not going to give into it. And it's little things like that that can build up and create a lot of anxiety and a lot of confusion and a lot of suffering. Remember, distractions cause suffering. This is what Patanjali asserts from us from the get-go. Let's shake it out. Let's tap it out. And let's make our way back down to the floor. We'll need our straps for this next part. And you might need a blanket. You could be sitting on a blanket. We'll meet in staff pose. I'm going to go ahead and pour a little bit more tea, if you don't mind, before we sit back down. My fall allergies are pretty evident these days. I'm allergic to mold and mildew. So I'm challenged in rainy weather. Okay, so we're meeting in Dandasana, staff pose, on the floor. Maybe a blanket. And if you recall, our legs are extended for staff pose. Yeah, I want to make sure you can see my feet. Okay, so we have gotten our prop. We've built the pose. We've sat down in the pose. Now we want to put a sense of mindfulness to it. We want to line up our mountain lines, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. If we want more strength in our legs, our feet are flexed, toes are pointing up to the ceiling to engage leg muscles. Yes, I know you like this seat. This is one of his favorite thrones. So we've got strong legs and a strong torso, and they're working together. So avoid slumping. Excuse me. Also avoid putting too much into it. Just enough. That Goldilocks approach. Strength and softness. Stability, but quiet. Let's stay here for 5 more breaths. So take your attentions to your breath. Deepen your inhales, lengthen your exhales, and make your way slowly but surely from 1 to 5, and consciously count those breaths so that you're concentrating on the body, the breath, and the challenge I've given you. As you slowly but surely make your way to 5, notice how your staff feels once you've made it to 5. Has it changed a little bit? Is your breathing changing? Is it taking you longer to get to 5, which is what I'm hoping for? That can help you stay in that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest. So from here, let's take our strap and put it on the feet. So the feet are in the center of the strap. Try not to put the strap in the center of the feet, the top or the bottom of the balls of the feet. And then when you're ready, build that staff with your strap, your body, and reinforce it with the strap. And then from there, start to tap into these resources. You've got the earth, so press the legs into the earth, press the sits bones into the earth, and then start to pull on the strap and hinge at the hips. So press, pull, hinge. And your body does the rest. So you're not dropping your head, you're not hunching your shoulders, you're not curving your back. You're pressing, hinging, lowering. Simplify the action. More likely to be present, more likely to be mindful, and feel the different sensations that creep up. Some might not creep, some might just hit you right in the face. Take your time. Lower the head when you're ready. And try to spend at least 3 breaths with your head lowered. Use that breath to help you release not only the head, but also the tension in the low back, the shoulders and the neck and the face. Let go. When you're ready to come up, we don't want to just consciously come up. We want to come up with awareness, right? So we want to press the legs into the floor, start to draw the belly in, start to pull on the strap. Use our biomechanics wisely, mindfully, with awareness coming back up. So our journey is more informed, more pleasant, and our destination just makes sense. What's your staff feel like now? 1 or 2 more breaths. Soft shoulders and face, coupled with a strong foundation. You be mindful of those qualities in your pose. Are you just sitting like, an L? We look like an L. Okay, let's go ahead and release that strap. And as we lie back, remember each week when we lie back, I ask that you always land with your knees bent. So be mindful of that. That's easier on the back. And it's also telling you, okay, we're not going all the way down to the floor. We're going to take a few moments just feeling what it's like to be lying down on the floor, knees bent. Tells us that, we still have a connection to the sky. And that we're not going down for Shavasana yet. We're going to take a few moments to feel what it's like to be lying on our backs, knees bent, feet on the floor. And once you're there, let's line up the shoulders, the hips, the knees, and the ankles like we've been doing. Find those mountain lines. So that means your feet and your knees are equidistant apart. And their feet and knee are not wider than your hips. They're in line with your hip joints. Root the feet, find the 3 corners. Arms by the sides. And when you're ready, press into the floor with the feet, the body, the arms, the feet, and the hands, and lift your hips up into the air for a chair. A bridge. Squeeze the legs, squeeze the glutes, draw the belly in, press the arms into the floor, press the head into the floor, the upper back into the floor. Come down when you're ready. Try to keep the knees and the feet from wobbling and from splaying or caving in. Try to keep the feet and the knees the same distance apart the whole way down. And we'll do it 3 more times. So once you're back down, if you want to bring your feet a little closer in for more leverage, you can. If your knees hurt, bring the feet further out. As long as you've got those lines, shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles, that's important. Your feet can be close or far away. What do you want? Strong body, strong legs and torso working together to press into the earth and to lift you up. So feet, hands, arms, upper back, head, everything that's touching into the floor, press into the floor and notice how that can bring you up higher. Notice that and control the landing. So when you start to come back down, you might feel your hips swaying back and forth. That's normal. That's your muscles just trying to get used to being engaged. Let's do 2 more. No, let's just do one more, because we are starting to run out of time. So a couple of breaths between each bridge, maybe reconfigure the foundation and secure that foundation before you press and lift. Foundation, press, lift. Squeeze those muscles. Notice what works, what keeps you strong, what keeps you supported, and what helps bring you down bit by bit without swaying back and forth. And once you're back down, take a couple of breaths back in your two-legged table. Avoid doing anything else other than maybe walking your feet a little bit further away from your body. Let your spine settle back down. We don't want to rush it. It just did some back bending. Let's bring the arms out to the side. Let's do a twist. Bring the knees to one side, doesn't matter which. And then look over the opposite shoulder. 3 breaths here. And after those 3 breaths, bring the head back, bring the knees back. Stay there for a couple of breaths. Feel the different sensations that are probably occurring in one side of the body as opposed to the other. And then we'll even that up. Knees go to one side, maybe prop them up. Look to the other side. And once you've stabilized, fine-tuned your shape, delve into that breath. And take 3 nice, long, drawn out breaths. When you've finished those 3 breaths, notice what concentrating on the breath, the physicality, the emotions, the energies attached to that. Notice how that resulted for you. And come on back to the center when you're ready. And take a couple of breaths back in the center. And then as you're ready, draw your belly in, hug your knees in your chest. And then you can come back to your two-legged table, spend a couple of breaths there. And after a couple of breaths back in your two-legged table, again, go from one stage to the next, spend a couple of breaths in each stage, bit by bit, coming into a reclining position. Feel free to put blocks under your knees or your thighs, something under your head and neck. And here, we'll take some time to rest, but we're being mindful of our rest. So we're not checking out. We're still in the practice. So this is time for you to feel your body and feel and understand the effects of the practice. Apply your awareness to your sense of now. What's it like to be you now? And keep focusing on those ideas as you rest and as you gently breathe. A couple more breaths. And then as you're ready, slowly start to build on your breath, deepening your inhales, lengthening your exhales, bit by bit, bringing more and more movement. First by that breath, then fingers and toes, hands and feet, arms and legs, two-legged table, a couple of breaths there. Come to one side, couple of breaths there. Easing your way up, and just notice how that mindful, efforted lift results in seemingly effortlessness. The more effort you put into things, well, the more mindfulness you put to your effort, the more peaceful it can feel. So notice what you feel once you're up. Feel the effects of the practice. What's your now? What's it feel like? And apply a sense of mindfulness to it, not just consciousness, but awareness. One or two more breaths. Let's bring our hands to heart center. Namaste. Thank you so much for your practice. I think we've gone over a couple of minutes. I apologize. I'll stop the recording.